daily lives. Move in us and throughout us as we gather together. Amen.
Breathe Again by Jenny Justice. The woman on the balcony across from mine is smoking again, which means I may have to shut my screen door until she stops, which means I will be hot, which means more work for me, which means I guess this is how it is sometimes in America. If something is negative and harmful, those of us who don't want it near us or in us are the ones that have to go out of our way, have to make adjustments, have to put on blinders and blockers, have to wait until it passes so that we can get back to our day. No one ever said life was fair. I know. No one ever said freedom wasn't free either. Of course, sure. But in this place where everything has to be carved out over and over again, and rights are expected to fly into your hands without any mention of responsibilities, where I am expected to carry on regardless of broken promises and shattered vows, of what I thought were once shared wishes, mutual dreams, shattered, gone, up in smoke. I look up and realize the woman is not on her balcony anymore, and it is safe for me to begin to breathe again.
Now hear the gospel. When Jesus had crossed again in the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered around him, and he was by the sea. Then one of the leaders of the synagogue named Jairus came, and when he saw him, fell at his feet and begged him repeatedly, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." So he went with him, and a large crowd followed him and pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had, and she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, for she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease." While he was still speaking, some people came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the leader of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." He allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the house of the leader of the synagogue, he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. When he had entered, he said to them, "Why do you make a commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. Then he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went in where the child was. He took her by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, get up." And immediately the girl got up and began to walk about. She was 12 years of age. At this, they were overcome with amazement. He strictly ordered them that no one should know this and told them to give her something to eat.
What is a more quintessential Jesus story than that of Jesus on his way to heal someone, being interrupted by healing someone? When I saw there was one more slot for me to speak during the month of Pride, I jumped on it. I wanted to have a career reflection, I promise, but after reading the gospel, I just felt confronted, confused, and a little hurt. I've heard this story many times, some while still in the evangelical church, and some in my journey through deconstruction. The church, understandably, has a fascination and a focus on healing. Healing is a direct, easy to understand manifestation of Jesus's power. If you've ever been injured, you know the physical toll that takes and what power the divine must have to whisk it away. Growing up, the church inundated me with story after story after story of miraculous healing in the congregation. I must have known something was wrong with my body, because some of my earliest memories in the church were, I'm not hurting enough to ask Jesus for healing yet. I felt guilty asking the divine for aid, physical or otherwise, because my requests seemed trivial at first. Why should they care about my sore back? Why should I complain about being tired and ask for rest? I wasn't really hurt. I was a teenager. I was young. I was healthy. My life wasn't difficult, was it? Not that difficult. I certainly wasn't marginalized yet. And I was smart and capable. Looking back now, though, I had been walking on a partially dislocated hip for my entire freshman year. The next year, I dislocated my wrist, and then my ribs. And finally, after 8 years of searching for answers, I was diagnosed this last December with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Big words, I know. A collagen disorder that has no treatment, causes chronic joint pain, and that's it. I can't identify with this healing narrative in the Bible. Every time somebody gets healed, I'm jealous, I am disabled. I'm bitter, recognizing the miraculous healing that I will never have. Sometimes I wonder if I don't just have enough faith for my healing. I question how I'm supposed to process this. Disabilities in the church are complicated when reading doctrine because most of our representation is used as miraculous healing. Some of us want that healing, to be suddenly free of pain and discrimination, but some of us don't. Some of us see healing as an erasure of our experiences and the communities we've built. So I have to wonder and question myself, should I even want miraculous healing? Is this even a theologically relevant question if I know that I can't be cured? This is really only the beginning of my journey in accepting and understanding my disability, but I'm also in the beginning of my journey as an Episcopalian as well. This is the beginning of my journey of not seeing my body as broken and useless, but as an incarnation of my being. My spirituality is not separate from my body. Sometimes I will struggle with embodiment and connection, either from my former evangelical theology or from my chronic pain. Sometimes I will not be able to physically show up for you. Even recently, I made time in my schedule to go to the Trans Resistance March on the 12th, and I dislocated my knee the Thursday before and couldn't walk. This is where I ask for your grace and your support in the community. This passage of healing right here, the power, the miracles, they will never mean the same thing for me as they do for you. And I need your grace in allowing me this space to just process that fact and be. I need us to learn the fine balance between your support and your patronizing, I need you to hold us, the disabled, in your community and in your prayers, even when we don't ask for them, because sometimes we're too tired to ask, or maybe too ashamed to be asking again and again and again. I need your help in building a community where that shame to ask doesn't exist, and where we can be openly disabled and openly involved. As humans, we want our problems to be resolved, as if our prayers are action items for the divine. But the biggest challenges in the church are not ones that we can deal with and move on from in one evening or a season or a lifetime. Disability is one of those among many. Queer affirmation and understanding, racial justice, church hierarchy, spiritual trauma, etc., that cannot be resolved. We need to hold this uncertainty, this tension and uncomfortableness with each other. I promise you my grace and my understanding, and I hope that I can experience yours.